Welcome to Season 2 of ADHD Difference. I'm your host, Julie Legg, ADHD advocate, author of The Missing Piece, a woman's guide to understanding, diagnosing and living with ADHD, and an unapologetic doer of many things. This season, we're turning up the volume with a global lineup of brilliant guests, bringing their lived experiences, insights, research, strategies and resources. And of course, along with a healthy dose of humour and humility. Whether you're neurodivergent yourself or just curious, there's something here for every curious brain. Let's dive in. Meet Sam Gibson-Massey, the founder and CEO of Hope, a workplace wellbeing platform redefining how organisations care for their people. Drawing on more than a decade of experience in enterprise software, HR and leadership, Sam brings both lived experience of burnout and ADHD and a data-driven approach to building healthier, more productive workplaces. Today, Hope combines evidence-based wellbeing frameworks, personalised care, and advanced analytics to help companies boost performance while protecting their people. Sam, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Julie. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Yay. Look, you've shared so openly about the moment that you realised ADHD might be part of your story and the relief and the clarity that came with your diagnosis. Can you take us back to that time and what shifted for you and when you learned that it wasn't something wrong with you, but that your brain was simply different?
Yeah, great question. So I suppose to give you some context, maybe that would help as well, because then that sets the scene for how things felt during that realization and then post. I'd spent, most of my life, I've always felt something was slightly different. I couldn't really pinpoint what it was. And the only reason why I knew that was because things were happening to me. So I would get anxious or I would have, what was essentially a panic attack. And I wouldn't know how to sort of get through that moment. And I went to therapy a number of times. Behaviorally, I was still struggling. And I couldn't work out, is this is it a genetics thing? Because, depression runs through my family. So it wasn't new to me. It wasn't like a big surprise that, okay, something feels a bit different. But my problem was, but it keeps happening. So what's going on? And it wasn't until, really recently, we're talking like not even 12 months ago, that I was speaking to my accountant and we'd gotten a call, similar to this one, and he was using a note taker. And I don't know if you've ever used one of these note takers before, but they're really great. They kind of listen into the call and they do all the work for you, basically, taking notes. So I'm like, oh, what's that? So I use it. I'm not very good at taking notes. It's part of my ADHD. And he kind of just said it very sort of matter of factly. I was like, what do you mean? And he went into a bit more detail about it. And then as he started talking to me about things that he struggles with, I started going up, well, I struggle with that. What does that mean? I've got ADHD. And of course, at the time, I wasn't really sure. So I kind of left it and didn't really think about it. But it stuck with me. It really stuck with me because the things he was saying felt so true. Mm-hmm. And so I took a test and then, the results always read, what they read. And I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. And again, I left it. I didn't do anything with it because I just couldn't. It was almost like I was afraid to say that was the truth because I wasn't sure if I would then be labeling it as something and I would be using it. I'm sure people who have this understand what I mean by this. I was almost like putting a label on it. I was like, is that an excuse? Or I don't know. I've always had mixed feelings about myself, right? We've all gone through something, and part of my issue was shame. I've always had a struggle with that, and your the inner dialogues that you tell yourself, and imposter syndrome and things like that. And so I thought I just don't want to tell anyone about that because I feel like it'll be an excuse of why these things are happening to me. So I did another test. Same thing happened back. And like a typical ADHD, I then did like 10 tests, And of course, it just kept saying, the results were coming back the same, which is, you've got a strong inclination that you've got ADHD. And then because I was struggling at that particular moment, and I'd already been running Coke as my business for a couple of years, and I was just going through a dip, personal dip, as we all do. And it's extremely exhausting running a startup. It's, you're on all the time, as it were. There's never really a day off. And I reached out to, or I found an ADHD therapist and coach who, when I read his profile, it read very much like me. And I thought, well, the least I'm going to get is maybe an answer, and he'll be able to help me a little bit. And that was the beginning of that journey. And that, for me, once I got to that point, it was actually a relief. It was a huge relief because he helped me move through that shame. Said it's not an excuse. Like, what are you talking about? It's just who you are. That's a brilliant thing. It's a beautiful thing. You've got this wonderful mind and it works differently. And so I became really more confident with it. And I wasn't afraid to talk to my family about it and my friends about it. And then I started talking about it more publicly on social media. And then I got this sort of outpouring, actually, of like love and support. And then also other people saying to me, I'm so glad you said this, because it feels like I've been stuck, and you saying this has helped me realize that maybe, and I think it's just something, but I was thinking about it this morning. I went for a walk this morning, and I was thinking, there's nothing exceptional about it. There isn't anything exceptional about being neurodiverse. It's totally normal, and we're all different, and we're all exceptional in that sense. So by putting a label on it, sometimes it feels like we're different, and we're actually not. It's just we maybe think differently to someone else, and that person thinks differently to us, and they're brilliant and wonderful and beautiful too. And I think as long as we think of it like that, I'm always wary of using the word disorder, like it's written in the title, and I think I don't think it is a disorder of any sort. I think it's just you're just different, and your brain works slightly differently. And so that journey's been really fantastic, and I'm still exploring it. I'm still discovering myself. I'm 43, I think. Yeah, 43. I've discovered it really late, but I've always been very aware of my mental health. I've always been aware of my mental health state, and I've always known what was going on. And since that discovery, things have become a lot easier. I've learned, we'll talk about that. I've learned, coping mechanisms or ways to actually work through things. And I have good days and bad days. I had a difficult day yesterday, but I worked through it. And, I would used to spiral, and that was the challenge. Was the spiraling feeling is really crippling sometimes if you've got any type of mental health issue. And I think it's just learning how your brain works and what you can do to help yourself to make sure that you just don't go down the wrong road. Sometimes you just walk down the wrong road and you get a bit stuck. And it's how you can quickly unstick yourself from those difficult situations. So long story really to how that's been. And I think for anyone who's going through something similar, wherever you are in your journey, and if you believe that you might have, you might be different like us, just take a test, and it's like, it feels good. It felt so good I felt this emotional weight lift, because it was like the jigsaw puzzle all just came together, and all of these things that I maybe felt ashamed about or didn't quite understand. And again, I worked through this in therapy. So, I wasn't working out on my own. I had a very strong helper with me to help me realize, like, no, there's a reason for this, and it's all good. Don't worry. You're going to be okay, sort of thing. And that was, it's been a beautiful thing. I'm so grateful that I got through it. And, it's a challenge. We all have different challenges, and this was mine. So I'm happy to talk about it and help anyone else. And I'm sure I've still got a lot of discovery to do as well at the same time.
I'm so glad. Thank you so much for sharing that. I've written a few notes, and one is, you're right, that sense of we're not alone. We're not alone. It's a growing community, or if you want to call it that, but everyone goes through their quiet struggles, I think. But when they realize that it's not so isolating, that there are others going through the same thing, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are others that have been through it that we can learn from, is fantastic. You talked about a jigsaw puzzle. My book was called The Missing Piece, and exactly the same thing. I just felt that was the piece that then helped explained my life to date. I love the fact that you talked about disorder versus difference. Hence, this podcast is ADHD difference, because disorder, schmorder, let go of the disorder, but we are different, wired differently. And also, too, just the diagnosis is just the beginning. It's not the end game, it's just the beginning, which is wonderful. Which leads me on to my next question, Sam, and that, today you're leading Hope, our company redefining workplace wellbeing through personalized and holistic solutions. So I'd love you to tell me more about your work and what's exciting you most about it right now.
Yeah. So I founded Hope back in 2022, having gone through an episode as such of struggling, of struggle. I was working in a corporate environment. I worked for a great company, and I had great benefits. But what I struggled with was the type of care that I think was needed for me. And I think because we're all different, that's the challenge, right? Is what can you give someone that feels like they're going to get to where they need to get to, whether or not that's neurodiversity or anxiety or depression or maybe some kind of other health issue, right? And I was always just really surprised that what was available to me as a salaried employee in a really good job, and I'd worked my way up to sort of a leadership role, was just really not great. It wasn't fantastic. And there are so many other choices that we have in life when it comes to digital healthcare, but just a choice. Like, we have lots of choice available to us now. I think that's fantastic. So I started Hope kind of out of my own frustration, my own struggle. And it's the company's gone through a journey itself. It's gone through several life cycles as such. Is very, very typical in a startup. If anyone runs a startup, they'll know this, that you go through many changes, and it was necessary for us to do that. And at the beginning of last year, I recognized that what I really wanted to do was go back to the problem and find a way to help people at work, because that's how I came to this. And so the journey that we've gone on has gone from where it was, which was essentially a very sort of straightforward B2C therapy matching platform, to now being more of something that I think is absolutely necessary in the workplace. So we help people in different ways, and we want to do that in several ways too. So we, at the first hand, you want to help the employee, like, what do they need right then and there in the real time, so you're not delaying help in any way whatsoever. It doesn't have to be anything to do with mental health either. It's more to do with, where are you at? Like, how are you feeling? Are you performing at your best? Do you feel exhausted? Are you stressed about something? Is there a part of your life that doesn't feel quite on track? And how do we get you back onto that? And then for the businesses, it's all kind of rooted in data and data science. What we essentially do is upfront a very straightforward health assessment or wellbeing assessment, which we've designed ourselves. It's anonymous, so the individual doesn't, their data is not being used in any way to sort of help them with their career of that particular part in their job. It's actually used in a way to help the individual. And then for the company wide, we look at the aggregated, anonymized data and say, okay, we think there's a burnout issue arising over here. We should probably do something about that. And then we're able to, the way that the platform was being built, is that we will be able to look at certain risk factors, and we'll be able to help businesses, retain people. We'll be able to hopefully help them with their bottom line, because a lot of the issues that we face at work have a massive knock-on effect on the business itself. And we all need to work. We all need to turn up and do something we enjoy and love. And we all want to go work at places that we love to turn up and do things that we love too. So we want to work with those companies that really care about their employees, that want to put something in front of them that feels special and personal. And that's what we're building. That's what we want to put in place for people. And the type of care that you can get out of the back of that shouldn't be limited. It should be a full range. It should be human-centered. It should feel personal. But the use of technology is is paramount. We can use technology for good. It's about that. So how do we use technology to positive effect and make people feel well, be well, turn up, feel productive, perform well? It shouldn't be too much to ask. Yet for some reason, it hasn't been like that way. It hasn't been that way. And so I'm here to make that difference. I want to do that. I want to work with people and find people who want to work with us in that same way, and give people, what they need when they need it, basically.
That's brilliant. And the ROI on retaining valued employees is priceless. And we think about neurodiverse employees, myself being one over time, and potentially the likes of boredom kicking in, the yearning for projects and deadlines that drive us, using our creativity and problem solving. If that's underutilized in the workplace and there isn't a space for us to move or to exercise that, we'll be off. And so I think we've got a lot of value to give. That sounds very, very exciting. That the employers get the inside knowledge of how that works and how to get the best out of us, because we've got a lot to offer, but it's almost mining the best out of us. You've spoken about turning what felt like chaos into a kind of a superpower. Tell me about a daily practice or a shift that you've lent on recently that helps you stay grounded for you.
Yeah, so through that discovery phase, which was middle of the end of last year, I've always tried to keep myself fit and healthy. I try to exercise, eat well. No one's perfect, right? So you do your best. But I'd always struggled with, I think you'll probably understand this, and anyone else maybe listening would understand or watching would understand, is that the part of your brain, sometimes I can feel extremely calm doing something very complex. I don't know if you get that, but I feel like I can be in a very intense, what could be perceived as intense working environment on a task, for example, or doing maybe 5 things all at once. I can have, it's hilarious on my laptop, I've always got like 20 tabs open, and sometimes someone might come into my office and go, how do you know where everything is? I'm like, I just do. It's all there, and I can know where everything is, by the way. It's all good. But the challenge is, you mentioned it before, actually, it's true that boredom kills my energy more than anything. I find it really, really hard to sit and just be still. I find that very difficult. But what I've learned is that sometimes that's actually a really great way to just turn the engine down a little bit. And my therapist used, it's probably not a new term, but he says you've got like a Lamborghini engine and bicycle brakes. So you've got this ability to go really, really fast, really quick on a task, or whatever that thing might be, and you'll be going like 200 miles an hour. And then putting the brakes on, they don't work. So you could be stuck in a task, or you could be stuck in a state of mind. So you could be in a really positive state of mind and have these huge highs, but equally, you can if you spiral quickly, and I think ADHDers probably get this, is that you can spiral quickly and you can feel really low very quickly too, because your brain's able to make very fast connections. This is the thing I learned about ADHD, is that we're able to think almost in sort of a 3D mode. We can go from this point here and we can go, oh, I know how to get to Mars, in a split second. I know how to do the journey. And what we also need to remember is that can exhaust you. It's very exhausting. And so what was happening with me was I was getting to maybe like a Friday afternoon, Friday evening, going to pick the kids up from school and feeling absolutely drained of energy, because I'd suddenly just gone, okay, just turn the engine off now. And you're going, and I would be left with kind of exhaustion or basically burnout. And because I'm running a business, like I said, you're kind of always on. So you need to know when to ease off on the gas. And so when I was going through therapy, my therapist introduced me to loads of different techniques. Like, any one of these can work or not work. It's up to you. Like, you've got to just cherry pick a little bit. And I started a form of meditation at the beginning of the year called transcendental meditation, or TM, which sounds woohoo if you're into that, but it's not at all. Actually, it's the simple practice of sitting for twice a day for 20 minutes in complete silence with your eyes closed. That's it. There's no expectations. There's no music. There's no. That's it. You just have to sit quietly and bring your brainwave state low. To bring your brainwaves down to a very, very low state. It's essentially what you do in yoga. You like yoga nidra. It's just that kind of practice, and you're making a structured effort to do that. And so you're giving your brain time to turn the gas down, ease off the accelerator a little bit, go through your thoughts if you need to go through them. But by doing that, it then stops me sometimes from running away with a task or going straight to the thing that I've been obsessing over, my morning workout, and I have to get to it because that's what I need to do. I need to get it done now. My brains want to just do it, and so by doing that, what it does for me is it just allows the engine to recharge a little bit, and it is like plugging your phone in. If we're always on 10%, we're always running to the red line. You can't really expect it to turn up healthy and happy and be present. And what it's done is it's given me more energy. It's made me feel healthier. There's a whole journey with that I've gone on where you suddenly start to listen more to yourself. You start to understand yourself better. It's kind of given me room to have more of a sense of gratitude, be way more positive in my thinking process about who I am, why I'm here. So not spiritual, because I'm not that really way inclined. It's more just a tool that I use to give my ADHD brain a little bit of a rest. And I'm not perfect at it, by the way. Like, it sounds like I do it. I'm not always doing it twice a day, 20 minutes a day. I sometimes it doesn't always happen. And I notice when it doesn't happen. So I had a spell recently where going through kind of a very intense work period, working long days, basically, and just missing the odd meditation moment and then going, I'm exhausted. Oh yeah, I've forgotten. I forget, or it's gone away for a week or two. So coming back into it, trying to build those healthy habits, and exercise is a great one for me. I find that really calms my mind. It gives me space to think and breathe, and just give yourself some room where you're not intensely working on one thing, which is what we're really good at sometimes. And that can just be exhausting. I just think we have to be aware of it. I have to be aware of it. I've gone through different health issues in the last few years, probably because I wasn't aware of my ADHD. And stress is very common, I think, with people with ADHD, because we tend to, like I said, we can go there very, very quickly. So if the thought is really happy and joyous, we'll probably go there very, very quickly. And someone will say, wow, he's super energized. Like, yeah, of course. And then on the flip side of things, I didn't know anything about rejection sensitivity dysphoria either, which that's been a huge journey too. Like understanding, like, no, that's a thing. It's a chemical thing. It's not. It's almost like you haven't got control over it. It's all, and the pain that you feel is real. It's not pretend It's not just in your brain. It's in your heart. It's in your body. You feel everything. So just being aware of those things, and like I said, meditation's a good one for me. It's been a real good one, and I can send you, if you want to include the link, but I'll include the link to some of these things if it would help people. It's a great there's loads of different meditation practices, but this one works for me because 20 minutes a day for anyone feels like a long time, but for someone with ADHD, it feels like an hour. I can look at my watch 1 minute and think, oh, it must have been 20 minutes. And you look down and go, oh, it's been like 5 minutes. Because your brain's going through all these thoughts. So it's a good practice, and I enjoy it.
That'd be great. And I look forward to those links, and I'll put them in the show notes for sure. A couple of points on meditation. I think I struggle with the concept of meditation because I think I'm not used to being still for a certain amount of time, or the maybe being a bit anxious about what will it feel like with a quiet mind, because we're so used to it being so busy. And I think where we get unstuck is that our perfectionism kicks in, that we must do it like everyone said it should be done. But I think practice and just, as you said, that element, that time and space to be still is enough to slow our Lamborghini thoughts
Yeah.
down
And
enough.
also, I think, yeah, what helped me as well is that the purpose of this type of meditation is to have no expectation. So
Mm,
if you need to think for 20 minutes and have racing thoughts, then that's what you're going to do today. That you're going to have to sit and have racing thoughts. Or if it's, I'm going to sit and fidget for 20 minutes, okay, then just do that. But I think I'm a fidgeter as well. I don't sit still. I just don't. I fidget. Um, so I'm aware of it. I've got a lot of energy. Um, but what I the reason why I do it is, and it doesn't necessarily mean this is going to work for you or anyone else, by the way. It's more that the pain was so much that I needed to find a way to work through something, because that's what it was for me. It was I can get anxious quite quickly. I can feel overwhelmed quite quickly because of a lot of racing thoughts and not being able to bring it's an executive functioning thing, really. Essentially, like that front that front whatever it is, the front part of your brain which does all the executive functioning. It's just not quite fired. It's not firing like the rest of that creative part of our brain, right? It doesn't. The decision making process bit doesn't come in. But when I meditate, what I'm able to do is activate that executive functioning
mm,
piece of my brain, which I never really do. I never really do that. And so it's like the adult takes over for a bit and goes, I'll take the wheel. Don't worry, I've got it. You go off and play over there and have these thoughts and go and run around in the sand pit. I'll drive the car for a bit for you. And then afterwards you can get back in the car and you can go off racing around, like, do what you want. So it is hard. It is hard at the beginning. But the thing that happened to me, and again, I don't want this to sound too, I don't, if people are listening going, oh, this sounds like some crazy hippie thing, which it can. If you want to say that, you can. It doesn't really matter. There's nothing wrong with that either. But when I did it, what happened? The first time I did it, so you essentially go through a training to do it. It's quite strict and structured. Actually, it requires you to turn up physically somewhere and learn it, basically. Learn the process, learn the practice. I had this moment where at the end of the first session or two of doing it, the person teaching me was like, what did you feel? What did you think? Because I don't know if you've ever done this. Have you ever sat down for 20 minutes and not had anything going on and just sat still? Ask yourself that question. And I think the answer to that question is probably very unlikely, or possibly no, because we're sort of so afraid to sit in our thoughts for that amount of time. It's very difficult to sit still for 20 minutes and just in silence. Um, by the way, you don't have to sit still like rigidly like some robot, but your thoughts go through you. And what's happening during that practice is you are bringing your brain waves to a slower state, to almost a true consciousness state. And at the end of the first time of doing it, I had this sort of like, wow. And, she said, what did you notice? I said, I don't know. I've never had this before, but I just told myself that I am happy. Underneath all this, I am a happy person. She said, okay, what does that mean? I was like, I don't think I've ever told myself that. So it was almost like giving yourself room
mm,
to just,
mm,
who
mm,
are you? Who are you underneath all this? And
mm,
again, I'd gone through a very pivotal therapy session, not dissimilar to that, where you're peeling back layers and you're coming to understand yourself a bit more. And to use that term, to know thyself, it's kind of true. It's like, who are
mm,
you? Why are you here?
mm,
What's
mm,
your purpose? What's
mm,
what's what's going on with you?
mm,
Um, I feel much, much more. The ADHD diagnosis allowed me to feel at peace with myself. That's what happened. It kind of gave me that the meaning, basically. Like, it all makes sense. It all makes making sense to me. And now I go, okay, now you know. Well, how do we harness it? How do we get the reins on? Because it can be like it can feel like you're on some kind of wild horse that's running free, and sometimes a bit too wild, so that you can't, you can't get control of it, and it can feel horrible actually sometimes. I'm sure you must know what that feels like. And so I just wanted a bit of that. I just wanted to like, okay, it'd be great if I didn't go through these spells of anxiety and depression, or extreme, like living in your shadow. Sometimes is how it felt. Like you're walking in your own shadow. It doesn't feel good. Like it'd be good if I could just get peace with myself and have a nice conversation with my inner self. And that meditation time gives me that sort of moment to talk to myself and say, what's going on with you today? And, how can I help me out today?
Great words of wisdom, that it's not about following someone else's textbook as to what meditation should be, but just to slow yourself down, allow yourself the chance for your brain to recover, because it's so busy all the time. And we owe that to ourselves. And another lovely thing that you said is to start to know yourself. Now we, and we've been ourselves all our life, but to know us through a new lens is completely different. And if you do one thing in your life, to know who you truly are is such an amazing blessing, and will set you up for the days, weeks, years, decades ahead.
Try an exercise at home when you've got 5 minutes is to write down. I'm not a therapist, just be very clear about this. If you've never done this before, write down an exercise. This is a very simple exercise you can do where you say, I am. So I am Julie. I am a podcast host. I am and then just keep going through a list of all of the roles that you think that you play in your life. Like we've got social media profile, we've got job profile, we've got a LinkedIn profile, we've got all of these names that we call ourselves, right? And then ask yourself again and say, have I always been a podcast host? No. Have I always been this? Have I always been this? And what essentially you do, you're peeling back the layers. And when you get to the end of this exercise, which can take quite some time, and do it in a safe environment, probably with a counselor or a therapist, by the way, you come to that sort of realization, like, who am I? So who am I? Like, why am I here? And you should do, I think it's a healthy thing to do this, is to sort of spend some time with yourself, asking yourself that question in quiet moments, not when you're busy doing all those things you've written down, right? That define you, right? And then to have a real conversation with yourself about why you show up every day. What is that reason? What's your reason for being here? And what's your purpose? Because I think we all need some kind of drive and purpose to get up every day and feel good about ourselves, and to show up for people, and whatever that thing is, you'll find it. But I think it's interesting that we label ourselves, that we've been given labels, and then we assume those labels, and sometimes we lose. I lost track of myself a little bit throughout that, like using a label to define who I am, and actually, like, no, I'm not those. I am those things. That's a good public facing image that I've created for myself, and that helps me through the day. But simply, I'm just here to help people. That's it. I'm here to maybe help someone on their journey, and that's it. That's my reason for getting up every day. And once you realize that, it's so liberating. It's so much more. You feel more at peace with yourself, and that happened through that period of discovery of my ADHD, going to therapy, and starting therapy.
Wow. And it's that sense of knowing the whole of you.
Yeah.
Which is, multifaceted. There's lots of bits of you. I'm a musician, and we'd written a track called Iceberg, and it's almost, you'll only see 10% of me at any one time, because the rest of me is just not in your vision right now. But there's way more to me than the little bit that you see on top. And again, it's just acknowledging that there's more than feedback. Some people say, well, you're a wonderful CEO, you're a great speaker, you're a great visionary, whatever it may be. But there's more to you than even that. You know what I mean? So it's being able to accept all of those things. Sam,
absolutely.
I've got another last question for you, and that is a parting insight to share with our listeners. So for someone who's just been diagnosed, or still suspects they might have ADHD but hasn't really sought that clarity yet, what would you like them to know?
You need, I suppose, to know yourself is really hard. It's a really, really hard thing. And I had suspicions for a long, long, long time about like what's going on inside me. There's something wrong with me. That's how I labeled it. I was like, something wrong with me. And yeah, going to therapy was helpful because essentially it gave me that the door open. And I've been to therapy multiple times before, by the way. Like I've been to therapy at different times in my life, but it never got me to where I wanted to get to, because it wasn't really dealing with the root, the core of who I am, which is this wonderful thing about our brains that we've given a label to. But it's just like, this is how your brain is, by the way. This is why. You go, I think you're not alone. I think a lot of people deal with this. I think we have a sort of a loneliness epidemic thing going on at the moment, which is kind of sad. Younger generations, men specifically as well. We see a lot of depression and suicide, and I know people that's happened to. It's deeply upsetting and sad. And when I think about those people, I'm pretty sure there was something going on with them where they would definitely felt alone. And I think when you're slightly feel different and you feel like there's something that's not quite clicking, we give ourselves a really hard time about that. I think we all do. I think it's just sort of, it's a part of our, not everyone, some people are super positive and I love them. But when you're going through something with your mental health, it can feel really scary. That's how it felt for me, or how it felt in different times of my life. And it does still. Like I had a day yesterday, for example, where I had a sense of overwhelm. That's the word that was lingering in mind. I was like, why do I feel overwhelmed? I feel really, and it's because of all the things we've been talking about. I wasn't taking my foot off the gas. I wasn't giving myself a bit of room to breathe, my body a bit of space to breathe. And I think if you're at the beginning of that journey, or you're trying to discover what's going on with you, or you maybe taking an ADHD test, or you're curious about taking one, just take it. Like nothing bad's going to happen. It can be the journey isn't perfect, right? For anyone, no one lives a perfect life. Anyone who tells you that they do, or you see, or you think that they do, if you're looking at their social media profile, it's just not true. It's just it's not who we are. But I think we're meant to struggle a little bit, work our way through things, figure things out, and then get to the other side of that. I would just say you're not alone, and there's always someone you can talk to. You should never feel that you could never talk to anyone. And if anyone ever wants to talk to me, just send me a message, send me a DM. I don't care. I'll put my LinkedIn profile in the show notes as well for anyone who wants to reach out to me. I feel really strongly about that, because there's nothing worse than feeling alone in your thoughts. Solitude is one thing. I love being in solitude, whether or not it's in meditation, or it's in exercise, or it's going for a walk or something like that. I'm good with that. But for a long, long period of my life, I felt really alone in my own thoughts, because I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't talk about some things that I felt shameful about. I was going down, it's quite common for people with ADHD, because we have dopamine deficiencies, to go seek out those dopamine hits. And that can come in all different forms. And it did for me. And it's destructive. It's not a really constructive, positive thing. It normally leads to some kind of negative outcome. But I didn't know why. I didn't know why that was happening. And so then I had shame about that thing, or I would repetitively keep going down that road, going, but why do I keep wanting to seek out, the danger of something, or I'm not afraid of the risk of something going wrong. And it's because my brain was wanting something. It needed a fix, right? It needed a hit, as it were, to lift it up again. I didn't know any of that stuff. I did none of those things. I didn't know anything about the why, basically. And the sooner that you find out the why, the sooner that you can start putting in place some routines, maybe, or some things that might help you. Speaking to people, what happened with me was I posted a message, or I did a post on LinkedIn, and I I procrastinated about it for a while, thinking, oh, do I say this? What are people going to think about me? All of the things that you probably would do before publicly talking about something, and then realizing actually, no, this is probably a really good thing. And they've got this outpouring of love and outpouring of support. And then it connected me to different people. Recently met you. I've met so many more people. The positive outcome of that has been enormous, has been life affirming. You don't feel alone anymore, basically. You go, okay, I'm different. And here are all these other different people. And isn't it great that we're all different? Isn't it wonderful? And um, I still have my struggles and ups and downs, but they're just not so big. The struggles aren't so enormous. And they used to feel like that. They used to feel the first time it ever happened to me. If you've ever had an anxiety attack, it's the most horrible thing. You feel like the ground is caving in. Basically, you feel like in the worst case, you feel like, oh, am I going to die? I feel like I'm going to die here. What's going to happen? Um, and I didn't know how to cope with that. It was really, really hard, and I was afraid of myself. That's basically what happened, and that's a really horrible place to be in when you're afraid of where you're going inside your mind. And I know a lot of people go through this. It's common. It's not that uncommon. But I just thought, okay, then I'm going to get through this. Ultimately, it led me to this point. That's where it got me to. I wish I could have discovered it earlier. And that's all I would say to someone. If you're not 43, maybe a bit younger, and you're not sure, just learning about yourself. It's all good. You're going to be okay. There's lots of help out there. There's lots of resources, lots of free resources. Lots of amazing counselors and therapists and psychologists who understand this stuff better than me and can help. A very long-winded answer to your question, Julie, because I think it's really important to talk about lots of different things that can help people. But the main one is, you're not alone, and you can be okay as well. Yes, it's all good.
Sam, that's awesome. Great words, absolutely. And on that note, I'd just like to say thank you so much for spending time on the show today. And I really appreciate it to hear all about your journey and your strategies and insight. It's been wonderful. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Julie. Thank you.